On this channel, sometimes I talk about video games, but I don't consider myself an especially good reviewer, because in my mind, a reviewer should be able to judge things based on some concrete metrics and evaluate many different examples of a medium through the same consistent aspects. When I talk about this, the first person who comes to mind is an excellent creator, ACG. He reviews games and gives prospective players concrete reasons on why they might or might not want to purchase a game. That's not what I want to do here. I want to talk about this game's strengths, its quirks, and everything else that stood out to me, why I liked it, why it appealed to me. More than anything else, Beyond Citadel is the type of game that reinforces my belief in the importance of indie games. I'll tell you right off the bat that this game is not for everyone. This is a content warning. There are some extremely graphic depictions of violence and gore in this game, with the sexualization of its characters, in ways that cross socially acceptable norms and taboos. Also, the art style has the game populated by anime girls, and with that, I've definitely culled like 95% of the potential player base. Probably 99% even, but this is a good thing. This game is great for the people it is meant to be great for. Of those people, I'm here to tell the ones who are like me why I enjoyed it. Beyond Citadel is a classic boomer shooter with 360 degrees of camera rotation. They say it's like a gory version of Marathon, and I'm also picking up some Wolfenstein elements in some of the level design. The main character is a scantily clad anime girl with a distinct hand-drawn art style. Right off the bat, I'm fond of this because it's just a little bit off-putting. We know that this is the work of someone who is a human being with real limitations, and this is charming to me in the same way that Zun's artwork in some of the early Toho Project games is also very charming to me. I really love the fact that game developers can have an imperfect art that, when everything else falls into place, enhances the distinct and signature look of the game. Nothing else can look exactly like Doe Kudamori's art style, even if someone else tried. Secondly, the art direction in this game is consistent. There's no stylistic clash with anything else, so after a few minutes of playing, what once might seem off-putting slowly feels natural. The sprites are always facing you, which is reminiscent of the boomer shooters back in the day. This is something that I like because it's both timely, and the front side of the sprite is always going to be pleasant to look at when it's designed to be looked at all of the time. This is also a technique that allows to speed up the development process as it frees the developer from having to design and work with like full 3D models. Besides what I think are supposed to be sexy anime girls, there's also the next element, its graphic depiction of gore. I want to show you what this game actually looks like, so I'm not going to censor this video, but what that probably means is that this video is going to be age restricted. People who are critical of this game disparage the gore because they see it as fetishistic. However, the developer has pushed back on this take, saying that this game is actually a depiction of a brutal world, and what's more, the original source material of Wolfenstein and Doom were very gore intensive. Doom itself was subject to some moral panic and scrutiny for the exact same reasons. According to Doe Kudamori, the graphic violence and gore of this game has nothing to do with its sexuality. Whether you agree with his take is up to you. My take is this: it is brutal, and it does provoke a sense of disgust within me, and I'm glad that artists and developers in the world have the freedom to create content that is shocking and disgusting. When I look at some of the gore in this game, it is genuinely unpleasant, but it does not make me sick in real life beyond a reasonable and contained feeling of disgust. So I would not attack the creator of this work for using his privilege of creation irresponsibly. I also think that it ties in well to the gameplay, but I'll touch on this at the end of the video. If there's another thing that I can glean about this developer, is that he really likes guns. One of the unique elements of this game is that it is designed for you to realistically load and unload the gun, and occasionally deal with your weapon's malfunctioning during combat. As you would expect, left click actually shoots the gun, but then you have to release the magazine with the X button, wait for your backpack to load the bullets into the magazine, then press R to load the magazine, and then right click to cock the gun. If you just press R as your gamer instincts would tell you to do, then if you have a spare magazine, you might do a quick reload instead, skipping the whole mag release, load, mag insert cycle, but dropping your old magazine on the floor. You can find additional magazines out in the world, or you can buy them from vendors, but already I appreciate the depth here. There are genuine times when you're being run down by enemies, and this is a legitimate, rational strategy to keep shooting and keep yourself safe. If you don't have any spare mags, there are times when you're panicking from the amount of enemies rushing you, and you completely fumble what order you were supposed to press those buttons in. In real life, every gun loads and unloads a little bit differently. Semi-automatic handguns eject spent cartridges while loading in the next cartridge. That's what makes them semi-automatic. But revolvers have a revolving cylinder, and unloading them involves opening the cylinder, dropping the spent casings on the ground, and literally inserting new bullets one by one into the cylinder, or via the use of a speed reloader if you got one. A semi-auto pistol, however, needs to be cocked once after reloading the magazine, loading the first bullet into the chamber and drawing the hammer back. However, if you press the cock button multiple times in this game, you will literally just keep drawing the slide back, sending unfired rounds tumbling onto the ground. Whether it's unspent rounds or a dropped magazine from a quick reload, dropped ammo can be picked back up off the floor, another wonderfully satisfying detail in this game, allowing you to collect accidentally dropped rounds after the crisis is over. Similarly, in this game, when a gun jams on you, you need to cock it back multiple times to properly remove the stuck cartridge. But when you're being run down by enemies, you're going to instinctually mash that button to get your weapon working again, inevitably wasting a few cartridges in the process. This was such a novel gameplay loop that not only provided a unique gaming experience, but also an experience that was coherent with the tone of the game and its story. This is a scary world, and the actual game design puts you in realistically scary situations. I am a gamer, so when I think of reloading a gun, my first thought just goes to pressing the R key. But I am also an American, and that has afforded me the privilege of handling multiple types of firearms to know firsthand the experience of having to learn how to unload and reload different types of guns. And I was so pleasantly surprised by this detail. I think it's really obvious that the developer of this game he really loves guns. Seeing as some of the NPCs in the games will also talk about each gun's history and applications, and how some of them are closer to sci-fi, while some of them are more realistic, with the vendors also talking about how the ammunition type affects performance. He's probably a gun nerd, and like the other times I've stated in this review, I just love the ways that the developer has put himself into this game. Now, besides the very engaging gunplay, there are also collectibles found in each level, one unlocking concept art and the other one increasing your abilities. I first increased my toughness, as starting off your survivability is definitely on the lower side, but thankfully you can also increase your speed, your natural recovery rate for stamina and health, recoil handling, as well as things like carrying capacity for healing items, reducing the chances of gun malfunctions, as well as increasing the effectiveness of armor found throughout the world. One of the reasons why I am so pleased with the gameplay is that this game starts very good in this area, with a unique mechanic that adds to the difficulty as well as the immersion. But as you go through the game, you will unlock various movement abilities, including a charged jump, a double jump, an air dash, a second air dash, and for only one level, there's also some wall running. At the start of the game, it is almost similar to like early Metal Gear games or a survival horror experience where you need to ration your ammo, your current health, your healing items, and your food. But by the end of the game, it's a completely different experience. You are the horror that demanded survival. You are ripping through wide open levels with pinpoint accuracy from your gun, speed reloading like a pro, that you are literally doing via the button presses, parkouring up buildings, and completely tackling later game levels at your whim. The game starts off with a wonderfully restricted experience and concludes with an even better unrestricted experience. With the movement upgrades as well as the raw speed upgrades, at times, it almost felt like a Metroidvania. Sadly, there isn't really one interconnected world to make it a Metroidvania, but the upgrades themselves would absolutely serve that function if it did take place in an interconnected world. The premise of this game is that the world has more or less ended, and the only thing left on Earth is a remnant of humanity, who are all partly machine. It is extremely rare for a pure organic human to be out and about because it's just impossible to survive like that. However, this is all framed very biblically. There is a god, and there are demons and angels, and at one point, humanity was facing judgment, which led up to the apocalyptic world that we see during the game. So while this is a game about humanity and our relationship with technology, it is also vaguely a game about right and wrong and humanity's place in between this dichotomy. Now remember how back at the beginning of this video, we established that this is a weird game? I'm praising the game for what it is. I'm using serious language that accurately describes the premise of this game. But if I told you exactly what happens, it would be extremely unserious, and I would have to add so many disclaimers that I am not endorsing the sort of things that are actually depicted. I would have to add many explanations about how just because characters did certain things, I do not agree with those things being correct. If you actually look at the main characters and their motivations at face value, I don't see anything especially compelling. I would not do as the main character. But again, I am praising this game and championing weird people and their use of their freedom of speech, because no matter how weird some of the shit that they might produce is, I really appreciate that inside that weird little brain of theirs, they themselves somehow had some kind of opinion on the ethics of what was actually being depicted in this game. They wanted to make a story of a main character motivated by this, doing this, and being okay with it. Perhaps like the player character, the developer just doesn't give a shit about the morals and ethics of the masses and is going to do what they want to do, and that's something that I do respect. Additionally, while the plot of the game's story is unique, unusual, and intriguing, its presentation is just right. The info of these plot points are presented to you in short bursts in between the levels, such that you start the game with a sense of intrigue, you get a little bit of lore, you go through some really good gameplay, and right when you're getting worn out from the natural engagement required by the interesting mechanics, you get a break from the demanding combat to learn and participate. If there's anything that I can say about the entire aspect of this game, it's this: the pacing between all of its gameplay elements is phenomenal. You're allowed to take your time. You're allowed to speedrun. You're allowed to switch that up at any time that you want. Besides the story and vibes, there's one more thing that I want to praise that affects the overall feel of the game, and that is the hub world you visit in between missions. I've really come to love hub worlds, partially because it lends itself to the sense of pacing that I described earlier. Hub worlds like the Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 3 allows you to run around and play the game without actually having to play the main content of the game. It allows you to enjoy the experience while taking a breather. So I want to talk about the specifics of the hub world found in this game. In between missions, you can talk with your allies in the main base, and there's a room off to the side that allows you to play some bonus levels. Not only are these some of the best levels in the game in terms of gameplay, the ideas presented, and the experimental nature of them just being very fun to participate in, they also reward you with permanent power-ups that don't exist in the main story section of the game, and they make the gameplay of the main missions even more fun. This is a great use of yes and in gaming. It's way more fun to buff than it is to nerf, right? And that's why I love this. You are not required to play these bonus missions at all, but you are encouraged to do so, and you are rewarded for it. You are rewarded for exploring the hub world and not just blasting through the main missions. And this is important because it incentivizes the player to take breaks, even though the core gameplay loop is incredibly fun. Just the good game without the hub world might have players beat the whole thing in one sitting, but because of the hub world, I played the game slowly over the course of 7 days, playing a level, then exploring the hub world and doing the bonus level. Besides your base, you can also leave that base and you will discover a little tavern in between the place that you started and your base. Coming here after missions is also an enjoyable experience because it's a place for you to relax and almost talk with the developer directly. The barkeeper will sometimes expand on the lore events of the game. Occasionally she'll share about the development history of the game. Other times she'll just crack a joke. If you keep exploring her bar and go upstairs, you're gonna find even more to do. There's a secret up there that has to do with how fast enemies get tougher in the game, and I maxed that out because I really enjoyed the challenging experience of the gameplay while I was getting upgrades. And if you've been doing the bonus levels, there are little Easter eggs to find in the levels, which you can then visit in this bar, which will sit here like trophies. And you'll also be able to get to read up more about what these trophies are. It seems like some of them are like Twitch streamers or perhaps friends of the developers, or at least collaborators who are helpful to this game in some way or another. And I just really love that the secret collectible Easter eggs are tributes to these people. So in this video, I've talked about a lot of individual points about this game that I enjoy, but the real reason that I'm making this video specifically is how they all come together. The fact that the characters are mostly anime girls has some amount of visual appeal that had me click on the game. The weirdness of it all kept me interested. The brutal difficulty put me in the zone, and there is a certain part in this game where I was under fire, I was taking cover, I was trying to reload as the enemies were approaching, dropping live ammo all over the ground as I was panicking, and all of a sudden, I was shot from behind. At this point, I discovered downed enemies that are not fully killed will catch their breath, pick up their sidearm, take sight, and keep shooting. The rage that I felt when I saw what had happened was visceral. I turned around, walked over to her body, and I kicked. Her breathing stopped, but I had to be sure, so I kicked again. Her face had caved in, but she dared to keep shooting even after her life had been spared. So I kicked again, and again, and again, and again, until there was nothing left but a bloody mess. This moment was very special. I'm not someone who really indulges in gore, and when looking back, it feels really weird to do something so incredibly violent to an anime girl. But in the context of the game, it was absolutely the right thing to do, and there's absolutely nothing weird about it. And that's why I think this is a great game. Somehow, some way, this game has brought together very unusual elements. The developer of this game is a weird person, brought together weird ingredients, and created a weird dish. The way that you play this game, the way that you eat this dish, is also weird. But the thing is when you're playing it, it comes naturally to you. So when I see this developer cooking, to that I say,